I am proud to have on the program a friend of mine and a friend of the truth, Mr. Peter Schweizer. Hello, Peter. How are you?
Hey, Glenn. Great to be with you as always.
So, Peter, I want to make this clear. This is nothing to do with what's on the laptop. The documents that you have, that's not the laptop. It didn't come from Giuliani. It didn't come from anybody, right?
That's absolutely correct, Glenn. Last year in 2019, I got a call from a guy named Bevan Cooney. Now, Bevan Cooney was a nightclub promoter. He owned and operated a club in L.A. called the Viper Room, which was famous or infamous, depending on the way you look at it.
Right.
And he got to know Hunter Biden and his business partner, a guy named Devin Archer, and they went into business together, and they were involved in this Indian bond scheme that ended up being fraudulent. And Bevan Cooney, and I knew about him because I had gone through the court documents. This court trial had taken place in 2016. And he said, look, I made mistakes. I did wrong things. He said, but what I'm frustrated about is I was kind of like the junior guy. I mean, this was being run by Devin Archer and by Hunter Biden. They would take these meetings. Hunter Biden's name sort of ran throughout the trial. And he said, look, I just think people need to know, and I am prepared to turn over to you all of my emails. So he's telling me this in 2019. Well, we talk about it. He ends up then going to jail. Logistically, it never happens. So I just kind of assume, okay, well, that's off. He reaches out again through an intermediary about 3 weeks ago, and he says, gives me written permission, and he says, I'm going to give you access to my Gmail account. So we have literally spent the last 2.5 weeks going through emails on his Gmail account. And this is really important, Glenn. We're not looking at printouts. We're not looking at PDFs. We are actually in his Gmail account itself, sifting through these emails. And there is a shocking amount of information about deals involving China, involving Russia, involving all sorts of things they were trying to pull off. And it demonstrates also clearly that all the business partners knew what Hunter Biden's role was. He was, to quote one email, the, quote, pipeline to the administration. They also describe Hunter Biden as having, an important form of currency. They talk about some of the foreign deals in China benefiting from what they call the Biden lift, the fact that, Joe Biden is vice president of the United States. So we are going to be releasing these in a series of articles. With the articles, of course, we're going to be releasing the relevant emails. We are taking out, redacting some of the personal information as it relates to phone numbers, et cetera. But people will be able to read these emails themselves and see what sort of activities they were actually engaged in. So
this is, do you expect to be able to keep your Twitter and Facebook page alive? Seriously.
Well, look, I agree. I mean, look, they stated that the New York Post was banned because the emails were hacked. Nobody's ever demonstrated that they were hacked. And the whole issue has been puzzling. Look, I've had no access to those emails, the laptop emails. I have no knowledge of that. But it's really odd to me in this conversation, Glenn, the first question that should be asked, because everything that follows hinges on this, the first question should be asked about those emails, are they real?
Correct.
And unless I've missed something, I have not seen anybody on the Biden side say that these are fake emails.
They haven't even said that that's not Hunter Biden's laptop, which I'm surprised at. So they're only saying that this is a Russian hack. What the DNI said yesterday, there's no intelligence on that. We've never informed anybody of that. We don't know where Adam Schiff is getting all of that. He's using that and using the intelligence community for politics. And the DNI said, stop using the intelligence community for politics. You have some emails that show the relationship between Hunter Biden and the ex-wife of the mayor of Moscow, I believe, or the former mayor of Moscow. Yeah. And we know this, and again, the left and the media is going to have a hard time denying this, because if I'm not mistaken, the documents that show $3.4 million transferred from that oligarch to Joe Biden's son was found by the U.S. Treasury. And so you have a Treasury tracking receipt, correct?
Yes.
All right. So now what?
Exactly right.
But we didn't know why that money happened. Is there an email that you have now that shows where that money was? What was happening with that?
Great question, Glenn. So here's what is absolutely fascinating. So let's keep in mind, Yelena Baturina, she's the ex-wife of the mayor of Moscow, the richest woman in Russia. The State Department, if you go on WikiLeaks, you can find numerous examples of this. The U.S. State Department links her to Russian organized crime. So this is not just a corrupt oligarch. The State Department says she is tied to Russian organized crime. We have a series of emails in which 2014, the partners are discussing that Yelena Baturina wants to get her assets out of Russia. Now, what's going on in 2014? Russia has invaded Ukraine. Yelena Baturina is facing these allegations of link to organized crime. She's on a watch list for the Treasury Department. And what these emails show is that they work and establish financial accounts for this corrupt oligarch in the United States. The email chain shows that they go to J.P. Morgan. They convince J.P. Morgan to open the account. J.P. Morgan's standard, by the way, Glenn, is that, yes, she's on a watch list, but she hasn't been charged with any felonies. So we're good to go. The emails also demonstrate a series of financial deals that they are working on with Yelena Baturina. So when the Biden campaign says that, the $3.5 million from Yelena Baturina is Russian disinformation, not only is that inaccurate because the Treasury Department actually has records of that transaction because it's deemed to be a suspicious transaction, we also have emails that demonstrate the relationship goes back to 2014 and that Yelena Baturina is entrusting Hunter Biden's small financial firm with setting up her accounts in the United States. It's a stunning example of, obviously, the level of trust that she had with Hunter Biden's firm, Rosemont.
Okay, so that particular story, the way it has just been told, does not involve Joe Biden.
Not that we know of, no.
Okay.
But what it demonstrates is that clearly Yelena Baturina wanted to have somebody who was politically connected help her set up accounts and bring her assets to the United States.
So tell me about the documents that connect Joe Biden to the China graft or the Ukraine graft.
Yeah, there's numerous examples. So we reported that in 2011, a group of elite Chinese officials. Some of them are Chinese Communist Party officials. Some of them are, businessmen, want to go to the White House for a meeting, and they haven't been able to get it for some reason. Who ends up getting it for them is Hunter Biden. And what's curious about this, Glenn, is the meeting takes place. They go to the White House. There's an official White House calendar. We've been able to confirm this independently, and it lists who they meet with. Well, when you go and look at the Chinese members of that delegation, they describe on their own personal blogs that they had a private meeting with Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden. It's not on the official White House calendar. It was hidden. And that demonstrates the level of access that they were given. Hunter Biden arranged for the visit to the White House. These officials go into the White House. They meet with Joe Biden. And then as we demonstrate what happens later, Glenn, is several members of that delegation end up doing business with Rosemont, which is Hunter Biden's firm.
Is that the Communist Party group that offered him the deal that even Goldman Sachs has never been offered?
Well, that's a separate deal. So this is the first one. Yeah, this is a separate one. The one I just discussed involved a group called the China Entrepreneurs Club, which is a wonderfully benign name for an organization which is really operates as the second foreign ministry of the Chinese government, according to Western sources. So, but the $1.5 billion private equity deal, what the emails demonstrate, and we are going to be showing in articles the next couple of days. Here's what's stunning about that $1.5 billion private equity deal they get in China. We are going to be able to show, Glenn, that deal was consummated with Chinese officials, with Hunter Biden at the U.S. Embassy in Beijing. Now, let me tell you how shocking that is. First of all, you are not supposed to be doing private commercial deals in a U.S. government facility, which is the U.S. Embassy. But it gets even more smelly, as it were, because the ambassador at the time is who? It's Max Baucus, the senator from Montana, who is a longtime friend with Joe Biden. So we are going to demonstrate and show that this billion-dollar-plus private equity deal that Hunter Biden got with the Chinese government was actually consummated on U.S. federal government property with a close friend of Joe Biden, the ambassador Max Baucus, there convening the meeting.
Holy cow. Peter, I know this is an opinion, but is this thing so deep in the State Department and in the other agencies that it's just protected? We're never really going to see anyone go to jail?
It's hard to know. I always say, Glenn, we've talked about this before, I'm not a lawyer, but if you look at these behaviors and you're not offended and shocked and troubled by them, then you're not going to be troubled by pretty much anything that occurs in politics. And what I tell people, Glenn, which is important to keep in mind, is that corruption is a big problem in Washington. And, you've got the congressman who's, trying to get a federal government road paving contract for his nephew. That stuff goes on. What we're talking about here is something at a far different level, far more troubling, because it involves foreign governments and it involves foreign entities and oligarchs that, frankly, don't have the best interests of our country at heart. And what it means is you've got this financial dependence relationship, potential maybe for blackmail or other forms of manipulation that exist because the Biden family has chosen to do business in the dark corners of the earth. As I've said before, Glenn, they're not doing deals in London or Tokyo. They're doing deals in Ukraine, in China, with Russian oligarchs. These are dark, murky corners where there's a lot of corruption and illegality going on.
Peter Schweizer, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for pursuing this like you have over the last few years. Thank you for taking the beating that you have taken as a journalist, and thanks for being on the program. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Glenn. Thanks.
You bet.